Sorry. Good day, everyone, and Happy New Year 2022. It is January the 20th, and it's highly recommended that you attend this event from your computers instead of your mobile devices. If you would like to listen to this event in Chinese, Indonesian, Japanese, Thai, or Vietnamese, please follow the instructions which my colleagues have posted in the chat and displayed on the screen for simultaneous translation. So I'd just like to say welcome to Kaspersky's 4th Asia-Pacific Online Policy Forum, where we gather government leaders and experts across the public and private sectors to discuss pressing issues on cybersecurity. By way of introduction, Kaspersky is the world's largest privately held cybersecurity company that protects over 400 million users and 250,000 corporate clients around the globe. Operating in nearly 200 territories, Kaspersky's comprehensive security portfolio includes not just leading endpoint protection, but also a number of specialized security solutions and services to fight sophisticated and evolving digital threats. So what brings us together at today's event is the topic of ICT supply chain resilience. Governments and enterprises across the Asia-Pacific region have been shoring up their cyber defenses in light of the recent spate of cyber attacks. But our collective cybersecurity is only as strong as that of the weakest link. Increasingly, cybercriminals are leveraging the interconnectedness of the global ICT supply chain to execute wide-scale, high-impact cyber attacks. And these supply chain cyber attacks, which often target software vendors or IT services companies with the intent to infect their clients, give high-level access to clients' computer systems, thereby infecting thousands of computers in the supply chain all at once. There are many notable cases of late, but instead of focusing just on the problem, we hope to find solutions in the next 70 minutes of today's forum. A very warm welcome to Kaspersky's 4th edition of Asia-Pacific Online Policy Forum, titled Strengthening ICT Supply Chain Resilience. We have coming close to 1,800 people who have registered for today's forum, and I am excited to be your moderator. I am Jeannie Gan, Head of Public Affairs for Asia Pacific at Kaspersky. Just some housekeeping. Feel free to pose your questions to any of our speakers during the entire duration of today's event by posting your questions in the question and answer box. It is helpful if you can indicate who the question is directed at, and please do not forget to provide your name as well. Your questions will then be in a queue for publishing, and we will try to feature all the questions if time permits. Now it gives me great pleasure to introduce our distinguished speakers for today's forum. First, we have the Honorable Shri Rajiv Chandrasekhar, Minister of State in the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology and the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship of India. Thank you, sir, for being here with us. Just to introduce Minister Sir, prior to his tenure in the public service, the minister was a prominent entrepreneur and builder of India's telecom sector. And from Malaysia, today is Datuk Dr. Haji Amiruddin Abdul Wahab, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Cybersecurity Malaysia. Dato' Amir also brings along a wealth of experience in the telecom and IT sectors from his positions in the government as well as semi-government and private sectors. Thank you, Dr. Amir, for being with us. From Indonesia, we have Dr. Pratama Prasada, Chairman of the Communication and Information System Security Research Center, also known as CISREC. He is also widely recognized as one of the most, if not the most, prominent cybersecurity experts in Indonesia. Dr. Pratama, hello. Thank you.
Thank you.
And finally, of course, the man who wouldn't have needed any introduction, our host for today's forum, Mr. Eugene Kaspersky, CEO of Kaspersky.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, sir. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today, especially to you, audience. There are close to 1,800 registrations for today's webinar. I'd like to just kickstart the agenda proper by requesting Eugene, as the forum's host, to say a few words about our topic at hand today. Over to you, Eugene.
Hello, everybody, and have a very nice day. Well, actually, the life is going on, and the situation with, I think that's one of the most important topics. Situation with COVID is still not as good as we expected to have, but maybe it's slowly getting down because of this new Omicron. It seems not to be too bad. So this pandemic is slowly going down. So I hope that very soon the world will be open and we'll get back to normal life. So the businesses, the governments, the enterprises will get back to normal life, and the world will be open. The travel will be free as before. So we'll have a chance to see each other in person, not on the screen. So that's maybe the good news. The bad news is that unfortunately the COVID pandemics didn't really affect cybercrime. The bad guys, they have no impact, no damage from this bad time. Even they are even motivated, they stimulated to be more active because there are more businesses online. The employees are partly or 100% working from home still, so they have more opportunities in the cyberspace. And unfortunately, as we see, the criminals, they use this time to learn more, to be more smart, to find more ways how to hack the victims, how to monetize the hackers' activities. And the worst thing is that we have reports, we see the indicators that the criminals, the bad guys, they are slowly shifting, expanding to the direction of Internet of Things and industrial systems. So I'm afraid that the cybersecurity is very hot topic at the moment, and I'm afraid in the future it will be more important because we need to protect not only the consumers and enterprises, but industrial sector and critical infrastructure as well. And unfortunately, the bad guys, they are employing more and more different methods, different ways how to hack the victims, and the supply chain is one of the most promising and most important ways and technologies for the bad guys to hack the victims. So I see this is the one of the main topic of this this event. So enjoy this event, learn more, and let's talk more about the most important things in the cybersecurity. What we need to do to save this cyber world and to make it better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eugene. Thank you. It's a sobering point that vulnerabilities continue to exist in the most critical organizations and industrial system, especially even during this prolonged pandemic, which makes today's discussion of great relevance and all the more important. So now we can really talk all day about the trends and impact of supply chain cyber attacks with solid statistics and projections to show maybe. But personally, I've always felt that the strength or the weakness of an economy is determined to a large extent by its resilience or the lack thereof of its ICT supply chain and the security of its cyber infrastructure and networks. So cybersecurity has an impact not just on individuals, but also businesses and a country, and even a level of confidence of foreign investors maybe in the country. And I remember having a conversation with Dr. Amir about this not too long ago. We'd just like to ask Dr. Amir perhaps to just by way of kicking start this panel discussion to share your views about this. Dr. Amir.
Thank you, Jeannie. Thank you, Kaspersky, for inviting me to be part of this forum. It's good to see you again, especially Eugene. Well, back to your question, Jeannie. It's a very interesting question. When you ask me, it reminds me of 2 years ago when I was in a cybersecurity event in Kuala Lumpur, which was officiated by our former Deputy Prime Minister. She asked me about the level of cybersecurity or state of readiness and resilience. As a result of, she got questions from potential investors coming to the country, how the importance of cybersecurity to give them the level of confidence for them to invest in Malaysia. And most recently, about 2 months ago, I think about 1.5 months or 2 months ago, Malaysia was visited by the Secretary of U.S. Secretary of Commerce, and in a short trip, and then one of those countries that she visited in Asia, including Malaysia, and in the meeting with some of these ministers here, in which I was involved in one of the meetings together with my minister, who also hosts her, also highlighting the concern regards to the issue of resiliency, supply chain security, and this is obviously a concern in terms of the level of confidence for foreign investors to come to a country. So in the context of this, to Malaysia. So obviously your question is quite valid. When we talk about supply chain, and nowadays everything is all connected. So it does give impact to the country. And when it comes to cyber attacks, when we may think that attacks may happen only to big companies or conglomerates, actually SMEs are also basically, I would say, one of those that have been targeted by these cybercriminals or cyber attackers. And this is something that needs to be understood. In fact, SMEs are even more vulnerable. They are even lacking in terms of investment and readiness. But they are the ones that provide, I would say, support to the big companies. And obviously, once they are exposed, they can affect others. So we can see, for example, in the case of famous solar wind attacks, So these kind of things is a concern. And in the context of Malaysia, we do share how, for example, we realize this importance, and we work, for example, with the SMEs, the small, medium, and enterprise in Malaysia. Because in Malaysia, we are trying to push all the SMEs to adopt ICT, adopt basically digital technologies in their business. But at the same time, because of their limited resources, they may tend to see cybersecurity as an afterthought rather than an investment that needs to be put in place in the beginning. So that is why it is important for us to focus on this in the context of Malaysia. So we shared, for example, with the US during the visit, that we do have, for example, in the case of Cybersecurity Malaysia, we have programs with the SMEs, especially we call it small, medium, and enterprise, or we call it cyber health check for the SMEs. Where this program, we will engage the cybersecurity readiness level of the Malaysian SMEs. We try to enhance them for their cybersecurity resilience towards the cyber threats, and also to basically help them build the competencies needed. So these are some of the areas that we have in relation to ensuring supply chain resilient for not only in ICT sector, but other sectors that use digital technology as an enabler to, in their business. So these are some of, and under that, we view the importance of, I would say, targeting key SMEs that really, where various sectors of economy fully relies on them and on the ICT technologies, and basically with sensitive and huge amount of data processing. So these are some of the experiences. Yes, you are right. It is important to ensure level of, I would say, readiness and confidence for investors to come to the country. Thank you.
Thank you for those remarks, Dr. Amir. It's interesting that you bring up the topic of small, medium enterprises, and technology adoption, and also the how alive they are to the issues of cybersecurity. So, because I'm actually about to ask my colleagues to help me pull out some of the poll questions, or rather, some of the answers or results from poll questions that we've run on LinkedIn prior to today's forum, to get a sense of how often people think about ICT supply chains and how important they think that ICT supply chain resilience is, as well as who people say is responsible for ensuring ICT supply chain resilience. So here are the results that we've received for the first two polls. You see on the screen. So if you look at the charts, it looks like more than 50% of over 300 respondents do not think very much about their ICT supply chain, let alone worry about it. And on the other hand, 84% of respondents consider ICT supply chain cyber resilience to be very important. That's a very overwhelming majority. So I'm just going to maybe pose a question to Dr. Pratama at this point, pretty much asking you quite point blank, do these poll results surprise you, Dr. Pratama? If you ask me, the results are not very comforting, because it indicates to me that on the one hand, while respondents understand the importance of our ICT supply chain, but they somehow are agnostic about how it is managed. So does it worry you, Dr. Pratama?
Yes, I think this is interesting answer from the polls. You know, that more than 80% answer who aware of the importance of the ICT supply chain resilience. However, I think this also needs to be differentiated more deeply. The audience participating in this poll is come from IT company or just people that answer the question. Because of course, if the respondent is come from the IT company, it will answer. It's very, very important. Mr. Dato said that SolarWind that infect more than 18,000 company is very, very bad, and that yes, the 80% answer is so that we realize that IT supply chain resilience is very important. However, especially in Indonesia, it seems that ICT supply chain resilience, I think, only exists in private companies, because there are a lot of lacking data when we look at the government or bureaucracy side. This is truth. And today I told you before, the Bank of Indonesia also attacked by ransomware by Conti, and it's sad because a lot of data leaked there. And the second question about how often to think about the IT supply chain resilience, it's interesting because a lot of audience not worry about the ICT supply chains. I don't know. This is they think that they have a good cybersecurity in their system, or maybe they don't know about how the ICT supply chain attack. So this is need to be learn more. That yes.
Maybe it's they don't know what they don't know, right?
Yes, maybe they don't know how about the IT supply chain attack, or maybe they don't understand how these attacks come from, something like that. Because in Indonesia, a lot of IT development is made by the vendor or the third party. So especially on the government, they trust the vendor to do the IT project. So when we use the third party, vendor that they don't care about the IT security, the leaks come there. Something like that, Ginny.
Okay, right. Thanks for those remarks. And so I do have one more poll question which we asked, and I would like to ask my colleague to maybe put up the next slide so that we can sort of look at it in better context. Now, so while there is no clear majority, when we ask the question, who is responsible for ensuring ICT supply chain resilience? Our LinkedIn community has spoken, and it's clear that they consider two groups, one government and one multinational corporations, to be the top two entities responsible for ensuring ICT supply chain resilience. So perhaps these results explain the findings from the earlier poll, which Dr. Pratama was commenting about, where most respondents don't worry about the resilience of our ICT supply chains, possibly also because it's somebody else's problem and not theirs. So I just want to turn to the Minister. Minister, sir, do you think this is a fair allocation of responsibility based on this chart? This seems to be the sentiments out there. And if I may add, how effective do you think governments, MNCs, small, medium enterprises, that Dr. Amir mentioned, and individuals have been in ensuring ICT supply chain resilience? Minister.
Thank you for having me this afternoon at this seminar and this discussion. I'm grateful that you considered inviting us. Look, I look at this very differently. I think the internet and the technology space and the whole digital economy is so critical for, and I speak from the Indian perspective, is a very important part, of our overall economic strategy, that I believe that the responsibility of ensuring the ICT supply chain or the broader internet space is really a responsibility that the government should take. We have made it our mission to give ourselves the responsibility of making sure that the internet remains open, the technology space remains open and inclusive and allows opportunity for all to participate, but at the same time that it evolves into something that is safe and trusted. And in the Indian context, this is very important because we have currently 800 million Indians who are online, and the rate at which the acceleration of digitization of small businesses, consumers' lives, government services are all progressing. We absolutely require not just the internet to connect people and technology, not just to connect people and offer opportunities, but also for the tech space and the ICT supply chains and the overall tech space to remain resilient, safe, and trusted. So I would not think of outsourcing this to, and I speak as a minister, obviously. I don't believe that this is a responsibility that can be outsourced by the governments to anybody. The fact that the internet and the tech space must remain safe and trusted and be as rid of user harm and fraud and crime as possible is a responsibility that government should take seriously. Yes, it is possible that the governments have partnerships with private companies and multinational corporations and intermediaries on the internet. Yes, that I think is a core part of the strategy that we are adopting. But I also believe it goes beyond that to having cross-border collaborations between governments and between intermediaries across borders. So to answer your question in a slightly longish roundabout manner, I don't totally agree with that slide. I think it's a responsibility of sovereigns to ensure that the tech space that the people of their country work in, thrive in, grow in, and prosper in is a space that is safe and trusted and resilient.
Thank you for those remarks. I think I like the fact that you said, government can't outsource that responsibility, but I think there's also merit in working together with the private sector in ensuring collective safety as well. Thank you for those opening remarks, everyone. I just want to circle back to Eugene right now, actually, because Eugene mentioned a very poignant point about how industrial systems are actually now becoming targets, right? Prime targets. And I do remember that, Eugene, you have spoken several times before on the concept of cyber immunity. So may I invite you to maybe share a little bit more of what you have in mind to make this concept a reality, maybe including concrete steps, for individuals, businesses, and governments, if any. Yeah. Over to you, Eugene.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, actually, you're absolutely right that the physical world is getting the most important issue with if we speak about cybersecurity. We used to live when the cyber attacks they are targeting the individuals, small businesses, even enterprises. And we know how to behave. We know we can estimate the damage. We do protect our systems, but if it comes to infrastructure, to critical infrastructure, to very different areas, including, say, transportation, healthcare, well, actually, it's really new. So we can only guess what can be faced in case these systems are under attack. And I'm speaking about cyber immunity for quite a long time. So my dream is to make the infrastructure, especially critical infrastructure, to be immune. But well, actually, it's a long-term project. So I believe that some decades from now, the world will be immune, and the cybersecurity will be easy thing. So we will live in a very in the cyber world, which is designed in a very right way. But what we need to do to survive till that time, and what we need to do to handle the supply chain attacks issues. So I think that actually we can bring these two topics together. What the supply chain risk is? The risk is that you can guarantee the high level security in-house, but you don't guarantee the same level of security with your partners, with your business partners, which provide you the components, the parts of the system you build, you assemble, your own products. For example, one of the most critical issues with the supply chain it's in the automotive sector. So the modern cars, which everyone drives, which you drive, they are assembled from thousands of components, and hundreds of these components, they are cyber. And these components, they are designed by the partner companies for automotive sector, for automotive vendors. And they trust the companies. They trust them as a business partners. They trust the quality of the physical systems. But what about cyber? Because there are hundreds of the pieces, they are cyber. And the automotive vendors, they have no resources to check everything, because there are millions lines of code in the software which runs modern cars. So this is one of the critical issues. What to do with the supply chain issues in this case? So, well, I think that I have an idea, and I think this is a topic of discussion for the future. So the short-term strategy and the long-term strategy. With the short-term strategy, I think that many companies, many enterprises and vendors, they already have this. So they simply they have some kind of certification. They certify the supply chain partners to guarantee that the partners, they invest enough into the cybersecurity, and they guarantee necessary level of internal processes. So the maturity of the internal processes and cybersecurity in place to guarantee that the risk of vulnerabilities, the risk of the attacks through the supply chain is close to zero. So this is obvious thing. Certification, the procedures. So that's most probably this is a very important role of government. Government regulation, they have to be here, especially in case of the critical infrastructure. So the government regulation for the cybersecurity procedures in the supply chains for critical infrastructure. I think it's could be a good idea to discuss. And the second is a long-term strategy. And to my mind, the only thing which we can discuss, speaking about long-term strategy, is to make systems immune. It means that the system is designed in such a way that even if their component is vulnerable, it can't affect the rest of the system. So if there is a supply chain is broken, if there is some zero-day vulnerability, or there any other way how to hack the vendor through the supply chain, the final product is designed in an immune way. If the final product is designed in such a way that it's not possible to damage the system by hacking just one simple component. So I think that this is the way, well, to my mind. So, well, actually, maybe I'm not right. Maybe there's still a lot of, well, I'm sure there's still a lot of space to improve this idea. But I think that this is short-term and long-term strategy. The short-term is improving the business procedures, improving the technological procedures, the cybersecurity in the supply chain. And second, the long-term strategy is building the supply chain based on the cyber immunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Eugene. Now I think we all understand it a little bit better. Actually, cyber immunity addresses a more long-term strategic kind of approach, and talking about system immunity, and so that there's longevity in ensuring that vulnerability in the supply chain is reduced to the maximum possible. So I just want to start taking questions from the floor as well. They're starting to come up. I think I'll start by maybe addressing this particular question to Dr. Amir. The question is, how does the cybersecurity, I'm paraphrasing as I go, how does the cybersecurity of Malaysia deal with the increase of cyber security awareness for Malaysian SMEs?
Sorry, I didn't understand.
I think the question is, how does Cybersecurity Malaysia deal with the increase of, or how does Cybersecurity Malaysia ensure the increase of cybersecurity awareness for Malaysian SMEs? I believe that's the question. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Jenny. We believe that when we talk about the issue of cybersecurity, we have to approach it holistically. And there are three key components that need to be understood, which is very complementing to each other, which is people, process, and technology. And in the context of Cybersecurity Malaysia, we have a program called Cyber Kasa. In Malay, we call it Program Pemerkasaan Keselamatan Cyber. Roughly, you can say that as cyber empowering and strengthening program. So under that program, we have the people component that focus on awareness, education, and even training. So this is one of the areas, in fact, we focus. When I mentioned just now, the program that we have on cyber health check for the SMEs. So when we deal with the SMEs in Malaysia, for example, we don't just focusing on the technical component, but in fact, we're also focusing on the people component, especially when it comes to training and also awareness. So part of our cyber health check program with the SMEs in Malaysia, we actually have 5 areas that covers the cyber CASA, or the 3 elements, the people, process, and technology. For example, is the cybersecurity awareness program itself. That means the education, outreaching to the technical or the non-technical people, even at the management level. Then we have a seasoned training and certification, especially those in the practitioner, to give them the level of I would say understanding the importance and also the competency to protect the organization. And the other 3 programs is more on the technical, such as the vulnerability assessment, the malware scanning, and even on the process side, such as the assessment on the information security governance, risk, and compliance. So we believe that when it comes to under our Cyber CASA program, well, it is important for us on awareness and education, but we should not regard also the other 2 components, and it has to be approached holistically, because these 3 elements are complementing each other, and obviously it has to start from awareness. because the people is the starting point. And that is what cybersecurity is, people.
Thank you. So I think just to recap, the three components are people, process, and technology, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for that sharing, Dr. Amir. We have a question from Bangkok Post, Thailand, but I think Dr. Pratama can maybe take this next question. The question is there any estimated value of loss from ICT supply chain attack? And what is your view about the future pattern? I suppose the question can be paraphrased as what you think are the future trends. Dr. Pratama, would you like to give your view?
Okay, thank you, Jenny. Yes, there are a lot of loss from the supply chain attack. It's about, wait, I have data. It's about 1.8 billion US dollar for the no. I'm sorry. Not 1.8. It's about, where is it?
It's huge for sure.
It's huge. It's more than
yeah.
400 million US dollar for the supply chain cyber attack, and this will be trend in the next day, because it's make money, in the past when the hacker they just hack the company and pull the data, and they want to sell the data. It's difficult for them to sell the like a small data, but when it infect the big company, for example, Mr. Dato said that SolarWind is very huge company that attacked by this supply chain cyber attack, and it's make money, and that it's dangerous and scary, because this attack is not affect only for the regular company, also the cybersecurity company. So how if the cybersecurity company can be attacked? Then for example, the small business, it's too easy to attack. So I think this is the big problem. And Mr. Eugene, I think the solution for the cybersecurity immunity, I think that's in the dream for every country in this world. So, but I'm sure it's the long way, because for example, for the regulation, it's very difficult, to make a regulation for the cybersecurity in the country. For example, Indonesia, we don't have the data protect regulation in Indonesia yet. It's talking about years and years ago, but until now there is a different thinking from the government and the Senate, and make the regulation not coming. And the problem is the hacking is coming day by day. Jeannie asked me, it's one in quarter. No, in Indonesia, maybe 2 in a month, this attack. And I told you already, in the 1st January, we have Minister of Health of Indonesia, 6 million data leak. And today, Bank of Indonesia also attacked by ransom. And this will be the trend. Pandemic is not finished, and there is a lot of problem, because some company, some admin, they don't know how to make the correct configuration about the system. So when people access the system from outside, and the configuration is not good enough, it's more easily to attack from the weakest link in the system than the organization system. That's make the next this attack will be increased. I think that is
right. Thanks for that elaborate answer. I think in short, the damage is huge, right? That the ICT supply chain attacks generally cause to any country, to any company. And secondly, of course, cyber immunity is a dream, and hope that the dream comes true for us in the near future. We do have questions coming from Indonesia, and it'll be interesting because from Indonesia, our participants want to learn from other countries. So I think I will ask this next question to Minister. Minister, the question is, what is the cybersecurity policy for critical information infrastructure protection in your country? Let me maybe just repeat it. Minister, what is the cybersecurity policy for critical information infrastructure protection in your country? Over to you.
As I said, thank you for that question. As I said earlier on, we have made it a mission that safe and trusted is a phrase that we use to define our role and goal vis-a-vis all elements of those who are on the internet and who are connected in this whole new ICT supply chain or ICT network, whichever way you want to characterize that. So to that end, we have critical infrastructure mapped out, chief information security officers for each organization, and as Dr. Amir said, we have a very similar program of creating awareness and knowledge and expertise at various levels, ranging from MSMEs to large government entities to private sector entities. And it is mandatory for each of these entities to report breaches and cybersecurity incidents. So broadly, that is the policy, that we make it a serious business to ensure that our cyberspace remains safe and trusted, and that intermediaries and participants in the ICT supply chain in India report cyber incidents, and then we have institutional capacity in our own in the government that can investigate and prosecute if necessary the people behind cyber incidents. So it's a comprehensive approach. I want to say that I just want to take up from where Eugene mentioned this concept and idea of cyber immunity. I believe cyber immunity is the high bar on what we want. There is an intermediate milestone, which is safety and trust. So we are aspiring to create an ecosystem that will deliver a safe and trusted cyberspace. And then maybe as technology evolves and the concept of network-wide resilience and system resilience and user resilience and all of those three different elements on the internet develop their own solutions, then maybe as a sum of parts we can look at cyber immunity. But it's not something that we are holding our breath about right now. I think our policies or our efforts are more focused on creating a sense of safety and trust, which basically assumes and factors in the fact that there will be incidents. And incidents there will be, and there will be user harm, and there will be victims, and there will be criminals. And the idea is to be able to make it difficult for them. And if they do get through, to make sure that we identify them and prosecute them. And that is the point that I mentioned in the earlier part about needing in this current new world for countries and governments and cybersecurity establishments between jurisdictions to cooperate so that there is an effective deterrence to those who want to create cyber incidents.
Thank you, Minister. There is actually a follow-up question that's quite related to what you're saying now. So I think it makes sense for me to pose this question from David, Cyber Risk Australia. How much effort do you think companies are employing to protect the cyber chain from their own initiatives or just to comply with their own government regulation? Do you have a take on that?
No, I think it's a combination of two. I think my own take on this is that for too long it has been left to companies and corporates to frame their own cyber security policies and each one interpret their own levels of safety and trust that they need to build around their network systems and platforms. And it is only recently that governments have woken up to their responsibility of ensuring that these platforms are accountable by law. And in India, for example, in starting from February 2021, we have a series of regulations that make it necessary for private platforms to be responsible and accountable to their users and consumers on all issues, including cybersecurity. So I think it is not just about suo moto leaving it to the private companies or participants on the in the supply chain to define what cybersecurity is and do what they believe is appropriate, but it is also about having an overarching legal and regulatory framework that makes all of them accountable to their consumers if there is a cyber incident or a breach in cybersecurity that breaches either privacy or causes harm.
Okay, all right, thanks. I think the questions are all coming in very quickly. I am going to ask this next question to, there is a question from the Philippines that is directed at, I think it's meant for Eugene. So there is a saying that, Eugene, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. So what do you think is the weakest link of supply chains? And do you have to strengthen the supply chain across all the chains or just some key sections of the chains? Using the chain analogy, how do you achieve cybersecurity immunity, granting cyber attackers, the predators, to make sure that we're always a step ahead? Yeah.
Definitely yes. This is the short version of the answer. Of course, you're absolutely right. So the chain is strong if any piece of the chain is strong. So when we speak about the supply chain of the different levels, of course, here the short-term strategy and the long-term strategy, they have to be applied to any part of the supply chain. So if we are speaking about the standards and certification for the supply chain, so they have to be every piece, every part, every business, every company, every enterprise which produce some materials, the technologies, the parts of the systems which the vendor assembles their ready-to-use products. So that every piece must be certified and follow the standards of the safe development, or whatever the term you use for that. If you speak about the long-term strategies, the cyber immunity, so every piece of the supply chain must follow the cyber immunity standards. So of course, they definitely, if any piece of the chain is weak, so the whole chain is broken. So there's very high risk that the whole chain could be broken. So the short answer for the question, of course, definitely yes. So the long answer is, so we have to apply the standard certification and immunity on every piece, on every company, on every system in this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Eugene. I suppose in short also there's another saying that says, leave no stone unturned when it comes to ensuring supply chain resilience. Yeah, let's just all be very, very careful there. Thank you for those remarks, Eugene. It's good that Dr. Amir is now spotlighted as well, because the next question is perfectly for him. So my colleagues have preempted it. So there is Mohini Ratna who asked this question. Dr. Amir, as per your predictions, which are the sectors you think cyber criminals would be targeting more and why? And I think using your experience at Cybersecurity Malaysia, you would probably be well placed to answer this. As per your predictions, which are the sectors you think that cyber criminals would be targeting more and why?
That's a tough question, actually. Interesting, but tough question. But obviously, as we all know, the one that is on top of the list has always been in the context of Malaysia. So I can't say about other countries. So in context of Malaysia, financial sector is in the top of the list, and also telecommunication. But other sectors also are basically having the same problem. But then these are the two top sectors currently Malaysia is facing. And I believe with more critical sectors digitalize themselves and transforming themselves, enabling using digital technology, and obviously they will be even more exposed. So we can see it all depends on the motive, and at the same time in terms of how rich the digitalization or digital transformation exercise in that sector. So these are some of probably my view. I don't have a proper study with regards to that, but this is based on our experience in cybersecurity and based on what we have found for the last few years. So we predict that this will remain the same, but more and more sectors, because different sectors, different industries, they have different level of, I would say, connectivity and readiness when it comes to cybersecurity.
Thank you for that. And maybe to be fair, the so-called top sectors can change from time to time, even though broadly speaking, I think there are certain sectors which generally, because that's where most of the money is and most of the sensitive data is, they tend to be usually targeted, but it may also change from time to time, perhaps. So thank you, Dr. Amir. I have a question for Dr. Pratama, because it is specific to Indonesia. A participant is asking the question, Dr. Pratama, in Indonesia, a personal data protection law is being drafted. What if in India or Malaysia or any other country, in the event of a data leak, can the customer sue the organization that collects their data? This is
Yeah. This is the big problem in Indonesia. We don't have, the regulation about the data protection. So when the company get the data leak, they just walking and laughing. It's okay because there is no punishment for them. It's crazy, right? So if we compare, for example, to the Singapore or South Korea, there is, the punishment for the penalty, also the jail for the company or the personnel that, has the break the rule about the data protection. In Indonesia, we don't have. That's why I told you already that it's very difficult in Indonesia to get this regulation. Because there is not good communication for the government and the parliament, because the regulation is decision must be stamped by the parliament, and this is the government initiative, and there is no they not agree about some of the rules inside of this regulation. So and that's why we don't have this data protection regulation. It's make every company in Indonesia, every organization in Indonesia, private and government, they don't do the maximum cybersecurity things. They just think that making the application, then developing the system, buying the expensive system is good enough, but they don't think how to securing it. That's the problem. Why day and day there is a data leaks in Indonesia. The last year we have the biggest data leak in the world, 279 million. Indonesian data leaks by the some government organization. So this will be happen because especially in Indonesia, if there is no strict rule that can be used for the punish the organization that because their weakness make the data leaks, it will be gone and go. Big in Indonesia, Gini, some hacking is happen because not the hacker is good enough or not the hacker professional, but it's cause the system is very weak. So I said in the media that, for the example, the Minister of Health, junior high school download the hacking tools from the internet, they can take data from this Minister of Health. It's crazy. So I think we need to, I don't know, a lot of talking is not used in Indonesia. Mr. Dato has a friend in Indonesia too, good friend in BSSN, also in the IDCRT, but also they talk every day, but we don't have the regulation. And then if we don't have the regulation, make every organization think that it's okay if there is data leak in my organization. So yes, happen. That's the problem. So the government regulation is more important in Indonesia. And maybe I need to make additional from the Dr. Amir statement. It's not only technology, people, and process. It's not enough in Indonesia. It's need the leadership commitment or the big boss commitment, because if there is no commitment from the big boss, it's useless. Because if the boss say that, okay, you need to securing your system, but there is no budget, there is no human resource, there is no policies, is not good enough. Then we need rules and regulation for the government, from the government. This is very important. Also, we need the international collaboration, of course. So if these all things can be done, maybe we can make the system more secure.
Yeah. I like that you mentioned international cooperation, and we can talk all day about that one. Yeah. And I think hopefully the forum, avenues such as this help us to
equal collaboration,
grow that mind share as well. Yeah. So just mindful of time. So we're down to our last few questions, and I think there is a question right now that is specifically posed to Minister. The question is, given the importance of cybersecurity in the maritime sector, can you, Minister, please share the best practices from India to safeguard the cybersecurity of the maritime sector? Minister, over to you.
I'm not sure there is a specific different approach to the maritime sector. I think, as I said early on, we consider the entire cyberspace in India our responsibility to keep safe and trusted. And it doesn't really matter who the users are, whether they are government users or consumers or small, medium enterprises or large enterprises. We believe it's the right thing to do to ensure that we have policies, cooperation models, laws that ensure that the internet is safe and trusted. In terms of the maritime, since the question was posed to me and it doesn't really have any specific answer, I can just say this, that across the board amongst users, we have a deep awareness program that has been created and continues to run, where each organization is encouraged to have a chief information security officer. These CISOs are tasked with tools, made aware of what tools exist in the market to make their organizations more resilient, or make their organizations be part of a resilient ecosystem. So that is part of the awareness creation. And like I said, we have laws, we have data protection laws, we have a data protection law that is going to come to Parliament soon. We have in our case in India, the Supreme Court has ruled that privacy is a fundamental right for all citizens. So there is no way around ensuring that privacy is maintained, and any risks that arise out of breaches of people's, citizens' privacies or businesses' privacies, the government has to take action against that. So it's a combination of laws, awareness amongst the communities that are online, and the government's own stated goal of keeping the internet safe and trusted. So that is what we have.
Right, thank you. So, which means that, well, I suppose consistent efforts do matter, and we're not sure that we necessarily need to apply a different standard or a different kind of an approach depending on the sector, right? Yeah. So, one question before we enter into the next segment, and this would be a question for Eugene. The question is from A. Hasditama. And it's very long, so let me just try and paraphrase this for Eugene. There is an economic incentive issue in software production. Markets demand them to be delivered quickly, and it caused the lemons problem, right? That arise regarding the value of an investment due to asymmetrical information possessed by the buyer and the seller. So, Eugene, do you have any idea or concept to create new market mechanisms where a software developer can put their maximum effort to build a secure software so that there will be only secure software in the market and there will be no unsecured software?
Unfortunately, I don't think it's easy because we are Homo sapiens, and we as a Homo sapiens are designed in such a way that first of all, we think about the profit, the enjoyable life, the nice looking things, and unfortunately, security in many cases is the very last thing we care about. When they speak about the security, typically it's coming from government regulation. The first which comes to my mind, the seat belts in the cars. Was it introduced by drivers? No, by governments. So typically security, it's reduced flexibility. Typically security, it makes our life less comfortable than before. Well, I'm just honestly answering the question. So I think that, as usual, to make their software more safe and secure, I think that first is coming from government regulation, or maybe in a soft way, not regulation, but say kind of let's say. Just what comes to my mind, taxation discount for companies which buy secure software. Like you have a project, and if the project is secure by design, so the companies are paid by government by making it secure. So it's a kind of reducing taxation for these particular projects, or this kind of the soft regulation. So I believe that let's say the security in the cyberspace in many cases is very similar with biological security in our population. So when the COVID came, who was managing all this anti-COVID procedures? It was governments, international organizations and government, and local governments. So I believe in the cyberspace it will be the same. So this will be the strict regulation, international agreements, strict regulation, and motivation for individuals, for small businesses and enterprises to use secure software. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. That's actually a very nice way to sort of round out our discussion for today. But we will typically not end the forum just like that, right? We will do a round of what I call the magic minute responses. Some people call it rapid fire responses, but I like to call it the magic minute to remind everyone that the answers will all be short, sharp, to the point. So as concluding remarks by our wonderful panel today, I will call on each of you to finish a sentence, everyone a different sentence. And in return, I'll ask of you to give me your short response in no more than 1 minute, or no more than one sentence if you like, right? So maybe I will start with Minister. If you could, sir, finish this sentence. ICT supply chain resilience is.
is as important a goal for all of us who are working and prospering online as keeping the internet open is, keeping the internet growing and connecting every citizen of the world. So connecting people is as important as keeping the internet safe and secure for them.
Thank you. Thank you. That's exactly what I was hoping you would say, and you really did say that. So I think we're all aligned. Dr. Amir, if you could please finish this next sentence. ICT supply chain cyber resilience is not.
Okay. Well, it's not a one-man show, because in the current digital environment, no entity can work alone. So collaboration is key. So in the context of supply chain, both local and also internationally, we have to work together, the shared responsibility.
Thank you. Thank you for that lovely answer. Next, of course, Dr. Pratama, if you could please finish this next sentence, which is, to strengthen ICT supply chain cyber resilience, we must
grow together. How about it? Because yes. Ginny, our enemy in this, our enemy is the APT groups. It's the state actor. So we do need to make a cooperation, work together, and grow up together. So we have all this cybersecurity in our countries, like that. So we need to.
And these threat actors are growing.
Yes, they are growing. They are growing. So we need to grow too.
Yeah, and they're becoming more sophisticated. So yes, we will grow together as well.
Yeah.
And of course, Eugene, if you could please finish the sentence. In the context of today's topic of discussion, the future of cybersecurity is.
The future of cybersecurity is a great projects to do, and I'm very happy to be in.
Wonderful, lovely, lovely, lovely. I really enjoyed moderating today's forum, and from the very start, the inception of our APAC, Kaspersky APAC Online Policy Forum series from the beginning of last year, throughout all 4 sessions up to today's, the forum has always been a hallmark of excellent lineup of speakers, quality of discussions, and constructiveness of ideas covered. And it's been a great time today, and it's time to bring our forum to a close. For those who would like to revisit today's discussion after the event, a recording of the forum will be made available to all who have registered. If there are any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. So please join me in thanking our wonderful panel today who have shared with us their invaluable experience and insight. Thank you very much to the Honorable Minister Sri Rajiv Chandrasekhar, Dr. Amiruddin, Dr. Pratama, and of course, Mr. Eugene Kaspersky. And on behalf of Kaspersky, thank you to all our lovely participants. My name is Jeannie Gan, Head of Public Affairs for Asia Pacific at Kaspersky, signing off. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye. Take care.
Take care.